Gaza presents premonition to the global South at large, that a genocide can be committed with the impunity, with the ignorance, and the accolades of the West, until and unless the global South sees itself in Gaza. This international order is very likely to take its toll on friends of Palestine across the world. Israel's gamble from the very beginning of this conflict, from the beginning of its unfolding genocide in Gaza, has been the same, which is, let's extend the boundary in terms of time, in terms of what's legally permissible, in terms of the fabrications that we're willing to try to sell to the international community, for long enough that we can generate a deep kind of cynicism, a deep kind of desperation, a deep kind of hopelessness, even among allies of the Palestinian cause abroad. And so what we're seeing when the Israelis say this could take not just half a year, or maybe a year or 2 years, is a gamble that the atrocities will continue, but that over time, the attention span and the capacity to digest those atrocities, to maintain the same simmering rage that has motivated a lot of the protests that we see erupting everywhere from Istanbul, Sao Paulo to London, that would slowly begin to dissipate. And I do worry that we have now entered that phase where the sense of rage is now lowered to a temperature where people feel hopeless, where they can't even motivate their governments to align themselves with the same international laws they claimed to defend and promote. And there's a certain confidence, a certain brutishness, a certain brutality that accompanies the declining rage, the declining indignation of the international community in Israel's even more forthright, even more confident violation of international law. And it's willing to commit war crimes in front of the international community. And I worry that as time goes on, we're moving further away from accountability, further away from the application of basic international laws and norms, rather than toward it. I think that at the end of the day, there needs to be a very thorough accounting of the lies, the fabrications, and of the legal violations that have been committed in the course of this unfolding genocide. It's very easy to see how one lie leads to another lie, leads to another atrocity, whether it's the Flower Massacre, whether it's the bombings of hospitals. The systematic denial of wrongdoing by this government could fill the pages of a 1,000-page book. And at the end of this conflict, we're going to need a thorough accounting in the halls of The Hague of those lies and the violence that was perpetrated under their guise. And I hope that there is, in our community, scholars, lawyers, observers, journalists who are taking note, because that book must be written, it will be written, and the letter of its law will be applied to its full force in the pursuit of justice for all the crimes that are being committed hour by hour, day by day, against the people of Palestine in their occupied territories. In the first phase of this conflict, the moral credibility of the West went out the door. It was evident immediately to the world that the system, that this bombing campaign, the largest bombing campaign in the 21st century, was going to lead to untold civilian death. And so the ability for the West to claim a moral high ground that it had been scrambling for ever since its prior wars, heedless wars in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, went out the window. What's happened more recently is the legal credibility. The conversation that the West tried to initiate to defend any degree of institutionality of the sort of post-World War II order that it constructed and that it derived its protagonism on the global stage, that's also gone out the window. And so we've opened up a whole question in the world at large that's watching day by day, hour by hour, this genocide unfold. What are the new institutions that would need to be built from scratch to build international law that holds, that pertains, that can bring accountability for the crimes committed under its mandate? And I think that's the question that most of the world is asking, not necessarily looking to the West to lead those processes, but saying, these guys are neither going to save us, nor protect us, nor defend their own principles that are written into their own respective constitutions. It's up to us to rebuild a new international economic, social, and political order that corresponds to our needs, priorities, and to fundamental human rights.